About 4 years ago, I took a day trip to the beach. I love the beach. I love the ocean, and I feel like the ocean loves me somehow. I took a walk on the beach, and it seemed like maybe there were jellyfish in the water, so I decided not to go in. And it reminded me of years ago going to a different beach with friends where there were also jellyfish in the water. I did go in the water, I got stung. And luckily, one of my friends on that trip was studying acupuncture. And she said, I have some acupressure points for stings. Do you want me to do that on you? And I said, yes. So they turned out to be on the insteps of the feet. So she pressed on those, and something both remarkable and unremarkable happened. The pain, which had been at the center of my focus, shifted. It was still there, but it was no longer at the center. Suddenly there was also the sky and the ocean and my other friends. The pain was still there, but it wasn't so important anymore. So on this day when I was taking this solo trip to the beach, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to go in the water again anyway, with the risk of jellyfish, this fantasy arose that maybe someone at that beach would go in the water and they would get stung by jellyfish, and I could do this acupressure thing with them, and then I'd be the hero. So I'm fantasizing about this. I have the towel around my shoulders. It's kind of like a cape. So shortly thereafter, I heard what sounded like a screaming cry down the beach, and it was a little girl. She seemed to be about 6 years old. She was with her mother and her little brother, and she had just gotten stung by jellyfish. And I both felt for her because I know how painful that is, and I was excited that I got to do my superhero thing. So I offered, do you want me to do acupressure? This has helped me for jellyfish stings before. And I asked the mother and the little girl, is it okay if I press on the insteps of her foot? They were both fine with it. So I did that. I also invited the little girl to put her hand on her belly and just feel the rise and fall of her breath, because I happen to also teach meditation and coach people on finding their inner wisdom. So we're doing that for not too long when she looked at me and she said in a voice that I found oddly deep, that's enough. Let the pain run its course. Which is not something I would have expected to hear from a 6-year-old girl. And I had two responses in that moment. One was disappointment that I didn't get to keep playing out my hero thing, honestly. And the other was awe. Because even though this is the thing I'd been coaching people to find in themselves and continue to do, every time it surprises me. And every time I feel awe. And it was so natural for her. So she got up, her mother asked if she wanted a snack, she did, and then she played with the little brother. It was all very remarkable and unremarkable. Many wisdom traditions have recognized that each of us have access to some source of wisdom and care that's beyond us. Religious, spiritual, psychological traditions. or that we are that wisdom, that source of care. It personally doesn't matter to me whether we conceive of it as something outside of or inherent in our own being. You might have experienced this yourself naturally. Like if you've ever been going through something hard and someone gave you their opinion on what you should do or how to feel or think in that circumstance, if it didn't resonate with your own inner sense of wisdom, there was probably a contraction, like, yeah. Or if you heard something that did resonate with your own knowing, there was a relaxing and opening. It's like our inner truthometer. Unfortunately, many of us have been trained out of listening to this because there's a threat that if we honor our own truth, we somehow won't belong. So I help people regain this. And we can call on it at any time. I had to do this quite recently myself. Because last night, I got some devastating news. And I can still feel the shakiness of that inside of me. And it's not as important what the news was as just acknowledging that sometimes humans receive devastating news that affects us personally or people we care about or our world. And I was so shocked last night that I forgot about everything I'm telling you right now. I just tried to go to bed, and it was horrible. I felt really nauseous all night. And I won't go into great detail, but I had to get up and almost threw up in the middle of the night. This morning, I woke up and still felt really bad, like scared, alone, tight. But finally, I did remember everything I'm telling you about right now. And I called on some source of wisdom. And I didn't care if it felt like me and my own wisest self or something else beyond me. But as I opened up to that this morning, what came was my own sense of wisest self. Like there was a bigger presence that was also me there. And it somehow expressed three things to me. The first was that I was having a hard time. Now, this might seem obvious, but it's not always recognized in the moment. I'm just having a hard time. But in pausing to notice that, there was an opening to compassion. It's okay to be tender with myself. The second thing that came was an acknowledgement of this is happening. As much as I would wish for it to be otherwise, this is happening. Things are as they are. And that is solid ground to stand on, to start from there and decide what feels right after that. Things are as they are. So compassion, this is happening, things are as they are. And the third thing I got this morning was, it's best to not be alone with this right now. It's best to find others who understand and can keep company. So I called some friends. And that was good. I'm going to need to keep doing that. So I invite you to try this out. We'll actually do it right now with a challenge that you're facing in your life. It might be a difficult decision you have to make, or just something that feels hard. I'll invite you to just sense what question you have about this, and then to take that to some source of caring wisdom that you'll call on. So I'll give you 3 breaths just to see how this question wants to be formed. It's fine to have the eyes open or closed. The question might be as simple as, what do I do? Or can you please help me? And when it feels right, when you have your question, you might open to some source of wisdom and care that's big enough, wise enough, loving enough to hold what might feel like too much for you to hold yourself. And offer your question to this entity. It might be your own wisest self or your future self who already knows how this all turned out, or a place in nature, or a loving being, a person, a pet who's alive or no longer alive, or just a formless presence of love or wisdom or strength that you can feel right here. Letting this come to you, offering it your question. And sense what comes in response. It might be an image or a meaningful memory. It might be a felt sense in the body, or just a knowing of some kind. You may receive the response now, or you might just be opening the door for it to come later. And it's okay to open the eyes if they were closed. You might find that you get an initial response, but you actually have more questions after that, like, okay, that was helpful for now, but what about later when I get scared again? You can ask that too. What about later? And see what the response is. You can keep asking questions. This is yours to call on as much as you like, even after I'm long done talking. And it's natural, just like it was for that little girl on the beach. Each of us has this, and you get to be or call on your own hero. Thank you so much.